Well, moving on from there, I suppose on a WWE note, can't move on JP without noting that WWE broadcaster Ariel Helwani was that at the show. And that's another shit show we've
Ah,
missed over the last week.
What has
Fuck
gone on,
me.
boys?
what
Explain.
is
I've seen the tweets.
Ariel Helwani
Go
v
on.
Tony Khan is what's going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
I honestly thought when I seen them tweets as it happened, I thought it was a banner. I didn't think that was him, Tony Khan, actually replying to him.
Message for post at the end, isn't he? That was a great time.
He buries
Oh,
Shivani, doesn't he?
God.
Doesn't he bury Shivani in his own tweet?
I think he was trying to say, that Ariel's as much a journalist as like a fake TV journalist, which is what Tony plays on TV. Fucking yeah. I mean, I'd implore anybody to listen to Review a Raw and John and Way. Considering the relationship to Ariel, did a really good job of kind of covering it and being quite honest in their thoughts in the story. Like, it's one of them. It's like, I think the biggest problem with Ariel Helwani, and I've been saying this for a while now, is he just doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's completely out of his depth when it comes to covering wrestling. He is working on a knowledge base that he's like, he's like and there might be a couple of people we know like this, Matty, who you talk to about wrestling, and like they can have a good chat to you about like what fucking Rob Van Dam did in 2001.
Yeah.
And you get dragged into that conversation, don't you, when you're talking to them? And it's like, fucking hell, I've got a podcast here where we talk about it. There's lots. I talk about wrestling every day. I don't know how much I want to go back to this. With him, he's that fan. He's that fan who like. He's gotten his job with BT Sports, soon to be TNT Sports. We should talk about that as well. And he's bluffing it because he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's chatting absolute shit. He's trying to wade in. He's trying to find this little space in it. And he's full of shit as well. Like I think from the outside looking in, JP, on the UFC stuff, I always thought, he gets a bad kind of rap there. I think, Dana White bullies him. Dana White treats him, quite poorly. He doesn't deserve the treatment he gets. And that's probably still true. But like seeing it from the other side now, it's like, he's going on a show and being like, I don't know why people are having a go at me. I'm not a wrestling reporter. Yes, you are. You literally reported things like a month ago about the sale. Like, you actively reported things about that, and then you go on TV and because that's the thing, when a journalist goes on TV, they are no longer a journalist. They are a performer. They are part of the play.
Yes.
They're not reporting on the play. They are the play. And that's the problem. And it's not unique to him. I think this gets lost in the conversation a lot. Dave Meltzer did it. Dave Meltzer did it for New Japan. He was doing their post shows, like 2 shows a couple of years, maybe about 4 years ago now, on New Japan World. That was probably a bit of a conflict, maybe not as extreme as this, but that was Dave Meltzer being part of the show. We've seen other people do it.
BT Bus,
beat the BT Bus. When they do those Jericho segments, like the inner circle the inner circle town hall type of thing, and they have that that murderer's row of both real reporters and podcasters stepping in and being part of the performance. I'll take it right to AEW's and WWE's press conferences, but that AEW press conference, I know I bring it up a lot, but when Punk lost his shit and the follow-up was people asking Shane Strickland in-character questions to further his storyline when they were supposed to be there as media members, and that was the lads from Grapsody. That I think that's just as bad as this. I think anytime you do that and you become part of the show, you cease to be a journalist. And we do have this problem with the scrums and in general, where there is a blurred line between what they're actually for. Are they there to provide more wrestling content to be part of the story that's being told, or are they there for journalists to be journalists? My take would always be they're there for journalists to be journalists. CM Punk's just on a meltdown in front of you. You should be asking follow-up questions on it, not helping you make further as fake pro wrestling story. And I think the same kind of applies here as well. I think once you make that jump and you're Ariel Helwani, like I just, that's what you are. You are part of the show, and you're not doing your job. And he's been at those press conferences. He asks them softballs. It takes a Brandon Thurston to be in the room, be an adult in the room, and ask real questions of Triple H. What happened when he asked Triple H a real question? Triple H kind of half dodged it, but at least we got a little bit of a news bit from it. That's a journalist doing his job, and what this is, let's call a spade a spade. It's Ariel Helwani being a mark, being a fan, and getting to live out his dreams of appearing on a WWE show. But once he does that, he's got to accept that, like, he's gonna lose any minimal credibility I think he had, from the wrestling audience and from people who were supposed to take him seriously as a member of the media at this point.
There's a lot of. It's funny, like, because I think the one thing about this story, I said this on the Daily Update, is it's kind of not a wrestling story. It's a media story. It's a wrestling media story. And what is the wrestling media there for? So we're going to have a part of the media which is there to cover the kind of serious side, in the same way that you might have sports journalists covering particular sports and having their kind of beat, and they report all the things around it, like the infrastructure of it, the promotion of it, and things like that. And there's all these various things that can be covered. And then there are those people who will kind of cover the recaps of this is what happens on the show. And that tends to be a lot more like kind of online and more like kind of fan orientated. And that's fine. The problem is Ariel Helwani has said here, I don't report on wrestling here, but I'm a wrestling fan and I'm doing this work for WWE in terms of promotional stuff, which I kind of would have said, all right, that's fine. You have the prerogative to do that. Some people might see that as, well, you're a journalist, you kind of can't do that work, but which I don't feel comfortable necessarily saying. But it's the kind of doubling down on it, and it's the thing that you've said all along, and there's always been a point of actually he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He knows people that's within the industry, but he also can't help but feel that, like, no one comes out looking good in this as well, because it is a case again where wrestling media kind of, when it comes to wrestling, it's like, can't cover it seriously. I've got to be part of the story. I've got to be part of the show. And like, no, you don't. You don't have to be. Like, are we able to have normal adult fucking conversations in the room? Or do you have to be like kind of very much behaving like a mark, like you would expect a mark to? And
at that point,
Tony Khan knows better. At this point, he arranges, he's a big part of these press conferences, obviously. So he's much
the
to
worst
blame.
for it. I'm not just.
He is the worst.
I'm listening, and that might sound bitter or whatever, but he can't handle getting.
He's incredibly childish.
Yeah, he very much so is. Yeah.
Somebody at some stage, I'd say David Bixen's band, just grow the fuck up as well. I'm very, 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 very tired of the fucking pompous, self-righteous nature of his fucking complaints, and then putting up some cryptic bollocks underneath. It's like there's a lot of people who act like children around this, and none of them come out looking well. Wrestling media doesn't come out looking well. It's almost like better not going to these press conferences or doing any of these things. Or if you go, do what Brandon Thurston did, which is stand there, ask a fucking serious question, expecting to get some kind of serious answer. And if you don't get it, then that's not on you. At least you've asked the questions.
And that's more of a point, to what Simon says there. I'm not, saying, Triple H deserves any credit for his non-answer. But I do think we still got a news story out of it, because we got that, Triple H outright saying, I'm not involved in that sale. I'm not involved in that process. And even if you don't get anything, you're right, JP, you've got to ask. That's your job. Like, that is.
If he avoids questions on Vince, he avoids questions on Vince. But at least you've done your job. You can't argue with that. But they don't, and instead they ask him stuff which is, I don't know. Imagine if there was some massive like behind the scenes thing going on about Game of Thrones or whatever, and you've got a chance to ask the directors and go, so latest dragon designs look really cool. You'd be like, what the fuck are you on about? Get out of the room. Like, you're wasting everybody's time. Like, ask serious. Like, it feels like, again, his work on the promo package and stuff, I'd say, fucking great. I've no issue with him doing a voiceover on it. Ron Perlman does them for UFC pay-per-views all the time. I don't care about it. And I have to say, there's a period of time I was like a fan of Ariel Helwani.
Big star.
This kind of stuff, it makes me think of, he's like a kid and he overreacts to this kind of stuff as well. And then he gets himself into it. Glory. He hasn't covered himself in glory, but then no one has throughout this.
And I think I'm probably more, I think even that was a bit of a conflict of interest. It wasn't as obvious as this as an appearing on the show, but maybe I've got a lower tolerance than yourself for it, JP. But that's that is the other one thing. Like, to your point about Bix, I think if Bix is on your side, and he's arguing, and I agree with him on this one. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead, Bix, dig in, go ahead. Well, he's like a fucking attack dog, you know. He's not gonna let this issue lie. He picks these battles, and once he picks them, you know, he's not gonna lose. But Tony Khan's like that as well, you know, and that's kind of like what started this. You know, we had a week of, you know, Tony Khan, you know, doing interviews and talking up the WWE versus, you know, AEW war. This is all part of it, isn't it? And I think the thing that does kind of make Ariel lose credibility a lot for me is the fact that, you know, he seems to be proud about the fact that, oh, I was backstage and people were high-fiving me for the things I was saying back to Tony Khan. I'm one of the boys. I mean, that shows you, doesn't it? Like what he's there for and why he's engaging in this petty beef for. But yeah, I think I mean, I will say, like, for me, I think, you know, Bix is right in this case. I think he's
right, but it doesn't stop him being very, like, it's the way it's delivered, and it's the way that he is. But it's very pompous and self-righteous.
Yeah,
and I think that overall that attitude is something that we also kind of need to lose from it. Because then it's to that point where it's I don't know, I'd say be more like John and Way, where you discuss things in a kind of open way, but you do it kind of as a, you know, in a way which feels mature. None of this feels mature.
Yeah, that's it. And like I say, Tony Khan's a massive part of that. Cody said, though, in an interview this week that there's no such thing as a WWE versus AEW war. So, you know, that's take that as a given. But all in the same business, for all colleagues, you know.
The master in Cody, don't fucking help Ben.
If he Cody, I summed this up this week. I think Cody is like, he's a politician. Don't get me wrong, he's not a Tory politician. He's your favorite Labour politician, where it's like he's still a politician, but he's saying the things you want to hear him say. You let it happen. But he's still one of them, isn't he? In his fucking fancy suit. That's what Cody is. But yeah, the fact that Michael Cole's having, you know, little pot shots at Tony Khan and her and stuff as well. Like,
fucking ignore him. The days of him banging on about him reporting on the Yugoslavian war are well and truly fucking gone at that stage.
Like, Sean Coulthard, that's the one, isn't it? That's fucking. I always love that one. That's his real name, isn't it? Michael. How'd you get from Sean Coulthard to Michael Cole?
Well, can't have another Sean, can you?
Oh,
there's a limit on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think the thing with this is, like, I think there's criticism to throw in lots of parties, and I don't disagree with it, but I still fucking love it. Like, I've got that's my take on it. It's less I want to tell people off, more like, yes, okay, I can see the criticism of, you know, Tony Khan's not acted well, you know, Ariel Helwani certainly hasn't acted well, Michael Cole probably shouldn't have said what he said, but I kind of love a bit of wrestling beef and wrestling drama. So,
you love all that, Ben, purely though.
Long may it continue.